CFB today?
CFB?
CF.
Oh, yep.
CFB.
Yeah,
they call it?
11. It's on ESPN.
Oh, true.
The Oregon Utah game should be good.
Gig. Alright, let's do this. G'day guys, welcome once again to the Tripod, where we break down every single NFL game every week from a punting perspective. Coming off a very good week last week, going 27-8 on best bets. Could have been a lot better actually. We picked the Seahawks in the final game on the Monday night game and somehow go 1-4 despite them winning and covering. So takes us to 83-88 on best bets for the season, which isn't great, but we have more than made up for it with our multis. We cashed 2 giant multis last week, and that moves us to, we are up 67 units on multis for the year. So we are in profit and looking forward to week 14. Jacob, how is it going?
Yeah, that sounds crazy, doesn't it? But literally last week, I think we hit 2 different multis.
We did.
Of 20-1.
Yep.
So that helps a lot. And another thing about our losing streak was, while we never like to lose, and we were having all these shitty weeks where we went like 8-10,
Yep.
8-12. Like, if you can tolerate, a moderate loss and not, go on a spiral and go all in on the next game, the good times are always going to come. And, we have around 27-8.
27-8, yep.
Yeah, a good round for
Could have
us
been
is
better.
a lot better than what we consider a bad round, which is where anything other than 50% we'll consider a bad round. So it's good. We can come to you in week 14 with a bit of confidence. And now it feels like we're in the kind of the home run, because once you get to the playoffs, a lot less games and a lot more scrutiny. So these are actually probably the most profitable weeks of the season. Now we know enough about the teams. There's a lot of different situations and motivation going on that we need to, factor in, and plenty of money that we can make in this final home stretch of the season.
Oh, definitely. And last week has given us more than a decent chance to actually end profitable on the season, which would be very nice given what we've done with the multis. And generally, year after year, we have done very well in the NFL playoffs. So a lot to look forward to. But let's focus on week 14. The first game on the board is the Ravens laying 6 points at the Buffalo Bills. 43.5 is the total. No play on the game because we had differing opinions. And as we say, when we disagree fairly strongly on a game, we leave it. I liked the Bills here. I think them catching the 6 points is probably a bit too many at home. The Ravens coming off, a pretty emotional, hard-fought win in the rain against the 49ers. You got, a few people questionable, including, Hollywood Brown, the Ravens' best receiver, and the Bills obviously get the extra rest. So I did like catching the 6 points at home with the Bills, Jacob, but you had to lean to the Ravens.
Yeah, and I feel like the secret's out on the Bills in that, they were completely under the radar even when they were 5-2, 6-2. People dismissing them, that they're a below average team that has just, had a lucky schedule. But what did we do? We laid the points with them against Miami, cashed that, laid the points against Denver, cashed that. We took the points against the Cowboys. So I feel like we've ridden the Bills 3 weeks in a row. And now on face value, it seems like they're catching quite a few points, especially for a 9-3 team. But I still think that they are fundamentally limited. And realistically, while there's still a possibility, if they were to win this and then upset the Patriots in Foxborough, they could pull into, getting a bye and winning that division. Realistically, it's not going to happen, and they're more likely going to kind of cruise into a wild card position and be the 5 seed and play a 4. Whereas for the Ravens...
Oh, no. Have we lost you, Jacob? We may have lost you. It seems like the stream is going, but I can't hear you. So I'm
of their final 4 games.
There you go. You are back. You're back.
Sorry, I know it cut out. Final point. Ravens control their destiny to play at home the rest of the way to the Super Bowl if they win their final 4 games or at least match the Pats. Their toughest remaining game is this one.
Yep.
So I think they get the full attention. They have their full attention focused on the Bills. And I really think the Ravens will be too good and win. So I wouldn't want to take the points of the Bills because I wouldn't be confident with that line being less than a touchdown.
Fair enough. Maybe we will. Maybe we'll have to have a side bet, Jake. We haven't done that for quite some time. Before the
yeah, we could have a side bet. Or you actually ended up taking some of my money from our fantasy side bet last week after I took money off you the week before.
Very true. Fantasy playoffs have started. I know a few of you guys will be listening. Me and Jacob have both made the playoffs, and we do have a sneaky side bet. So yeah, an interesting 2 weeks coming up. Next game on the board is the Panthers plus 3 points at the Atlanta Falcons. 47 points is the total. While these are two teams that are out of the playoff hunt now pretty much completely, I think last week was probably the dream crusher for the Panthers. They still had a faint hope of making the playoffs, but to lose to the Redskins is an embarrassment, and that's taken them out of the playoff hunt. I think that the Falcons are probably the slightly better team here, despite how bad they've been this season. The Panthers have lost 4 on the trot, and I think, that is... they've just gone in a spiral pretty much. But I do like taking the over in games where you've got, two teams that are out of the playoff hunt now. Generally, they don't play defense as well. And these are two horrific defenses. The Falcons are a bottom 3 defense, and the Panthers are a bottom 6 defense. The Falcons love to throw the ball. We know that. They love to throw it even more at home. 75% of their plays are pass plays at home this season. So that, adds to the scores when you don't run it as much. The clock's not ticking. So I like the over here, and I like the Falcons to get the job done at home.
In fact, the Panthers' dream crusher, we highlighted it. That was when they missed a 28-yard field goal after a big comeback to beat the Saints. They blow that game, and we said it. And look, we didn't take the Skins against them last week because we had no faith in the Skins. But we said, like, the Panthers, it's a trap game now. You've got no faith that they're going to come in fully motivated because their season, they had like a 15% chance to make the playoffs, and then it was down to 1%.
Right.
And then what happens? They blew the game. So, luckily we kept that out of our multis. And, if they'd been motivated, they would have beaten the Skins last week. So you're right. Now they've fired their coach too. So that's something you got to factor in, because what we often see across all professional sports is that bounce back the next week when you get the new coach in there, that the team lifts again. But I don't think that will be the case, because I think Ron Rivera, Riverboat Ron, was quite revered and respected in the locker room.
I don't think they didn't
like him.
He
took him to a Super Bowl. I think it'd be actually quite somber that he's been let go. It's a bit tough. Like, they could have let him play out the season, but they've dropped him off early. There's no replacement. It's just an interim coach. So I don't think the players are like, I'm going to prove myself to the next guy. So I agree. Questionable motivation, lean to an over. I like an outdoor team that plays in a dome, playing in a dome in this game, because the Panthers' offensive stats might be a little bit suppressed from the fact they've played outdoors. Like, they played in a snowstorm at Green Bay as well, and all their home games are outdoor. Now you get like Christian McCaffrey running around on this AstroTurf. That's got to be a good thing. The Falcons, nothing much to play for, but they want to win at home. They went okay against the Saints, but fell short. But the Saints were really desperate to get them last week, and the Saints are a great defense, probably suppressed the Falcons scoring as well. So we like the Falcons and we like the over.
Indeed, we've got 4 plays on the game. First up, we're taking the Falcons laying 3 points. That one is $1.85 on Unibet. We're going to take the game over 46.5 points. That's $1.84 on Unibet. We're going to take the Falcons team total over 24.5 points. That's $1.87 on Unibet. And the Panthers team total over 20.5. That's $1.83 on Bet365. Moving on to the Bengals, plus 7 points at the Browns. 41.5 is the total. Not much to say about this one. We were on the Bengals last week. They get their first win of the season over the Jets. But that was because they could afford to win one, because the closest team, to them only had 2 wins. They had none. So they could afford to win that one and still shore up the number 1 pick in the draft. That is not the case this week. Despite, teams like Miami winning last week, the Giants are still stranded on 2 wins. So it's debatable whether the Bengals actually want to win this one. I think that they don't. They want to lock in that number 1 spot. But I don't want to lay 7 points with the Browns either. That's a dream crusher last week as well. They had tiny hopes of making the playoffs, but no longer after losing to the Steelers last week. So no play for me.
Yeah, that's right. You just can't play the Browns this week after they were building momentum. They'd won 3 or 4 on the trot. They had a clear path to the playoffs, and then they couldn't beat the Steelers and a third-string QB. Now it's like, if anything, they could spiral. For the Bengals, They got their feel-good win. They broke their duck. Now, Andy Dalton's back there, and, the way they played last week, they could win this game. But as you say, like, let's be clear. When you say they want to lose, we've spoken about this before. Like, no team has gone out there trying to lose. But seriously, this team has, set themselves up perfectly to hold the number one pick in next year's draft and draft a stud QB who happens to be from the same state. If they were to win this game, they jeopardize that. So deep down, there's kind of an inherent feeling that they don't really want to win this one. So
the owners want them to lose. The managers want them to lose.
Front office wants them to lose. So it is a tough one. So when that's the case, I would be tempted by the +7, but knowing that it's beneficial for them to not win it, I wouldn't risk it.
Indeed. Let's move on to the Broncos +9 points at the Texans. 42.5 points is the total. So this is an interesting one, I guess, for the Texans. I actually wanted to play the Broncos here. I think you talked me out of it a little bit, Jacob. I liked the Broncos in this spot just because it's a rough spot for the Texans here. You come off a big emotional win over the Patriots. Now you get to play the lowly Broncos at home, and it's a sort of what they call a double-decker sandwich spot. You've got a tough game against the Pats last week, then you have a shitty opponent in the Broncos, and then a look-ahead spot next week to playing the Titans, which will be for the division title. So I would have loved to have gotten a 10 on the Broncos, but not to be. We are on the over here. The Texans' defense, we know, is a very, very below-average defense. The Pats moved the ball pretty well on the Texans last week, just couldn't convert on a number of opportunities. Like the first drive got stuffed, had to kick a field goal, and then a number of times I think they failed to convert on 4th and short. So the Texans have a great offense, bad defense. And the Broncos, as we know, that's not the defense of old that they used to have. It's pretty much a slightly above average defense at this point. We know the Broncos love to run the ball, and that's probably why the total here is a little bit low. But the Texans cannot stop the run either. So I think both teams should be able to score some points here. And the 42.5, we've found a 41.5 actually, seems a bit low for two, teams that can score, especially the Texans, and have, average to below average defenses.
Yeah, I don't actually think the game was that tough against the Pats either. Like, it was built up and they're at home and they're on, Sunday Night Football, but they kind of controlled the game and, were out in front the whole way, led by, I think, as much as 20 points before the Pats got some fourth quarter scores. But I agree. The Texans are absolutely like an over team. Like, Deshaun Watson's legit. He's got, Hopkins just about the best receiver in the NFL to throw to, but Fuller is not a bad kind of 1-2 punch. Fuller is a good 1-2 punch there.
We should say that Fuller is questionable for this one. We're hoping, obviously, that he can go. That would help the over.
Just that mobile QB, as we saw, as he scored a touchdown himself against the Pats, that really helps in short yardage and in the red zone. And since they lost J.J. Watt and they traded Clowney away and they've had other defensive injuries, like the Texans can't really stop anyone.
Yep.
If you're going to say, well, they did kind of stop the Pats, the Pats had a lot of things gone against them last week. Half the team had the flu and caught a different plane. They've got offensive line injuries. They've got cohesion issues with the wide receivers. So I think that the Texans might get a bit of credit that the defense played well. I think that could have been much more to do with the fact that the Pats were very subpar and kind of punted on the game a little bit once they fell behind. So the Texans are a team that I expect to be playing more often in a high-scoring game. Now, Denver, look, you got a rookie QB. It played from in front last week, so he played very vanilla, especially second half. You've got a pretty decent defense, although Von Miller is questionable, didn't play last week. But what we've seen with this Denver team, when they go on the road and they're a big underdog, they want to be aggressive. They want to throw the ball deep, because if you throw the ball deep instantly, you're actually taking a little bit of pressure off the QB, and that you're not showing your hand that you're going to be ultra conservative and the other team feasts on that. And we've talked about before, when teams play aggressive and they're going for it on fourth down and they're throwing deep and, they're gambling a little bit, it lends itself to higher scoring situations. So with a low total, and again, I've got an outdoor team that comes into a dome, a team that doesn't usually play in a lot of high scoring games, gets the opportunity to play in beautiful, weather controlled conditions into the colder months. So for a number of reasons, I like the over in this one.
Why not be aggressive? I love it from the Broncos. 8 seconds left. You've just conceded the field goal. You can take a knee, which 99% of teams do, and go to overtime. But no, he throws a 50-yard Hail Mary, gets the pass interference, and they get the win in regulation. I love that call. Anyway, we're on the over. We're on the over 41.5. You can find that one in the alt total markets on Bet365 at $1.80. Let's move on to the Lions, plus 12.5 points at the Vikings. 43 points is the total. well, the Vikings are the much better team here, obviously, but we rarely lay double digits. I don't think we've laid double digits once this year in the NFL, because obviously, there's a lot of ways that you can lose as a double-digit favourite, that's for sure. The Lions, they've got to be coming in a bit disappointed in this one. They blew a lead against the Bears. That was a bad loss for them. But once again, Matt Stafford's out for this game, so you've still got the backup in there. So this Lions team, I don't see them scoring that many points against the Vikings, but it is a bit of a letdown spot for the Vikings coming off the Monday night game, short prep, tough game against the Seahawks where they had chances but fell short. So can make arguments to take both sides, so we're taking neither.
Yeah, you got no confidence that the Lions are really motivated for this game. They come in to your hostile environment in Minnesota with a third-string QB because, of course, Driscoll is on IR with the hamstring injury. So, and although this Blau, we called him Blow last week, but he played all right, so let's call him Blau.
Who knows?
He played okay against the Bears.
Yeah.
But still, this will be a tough task. But I'm not going to lay that number of points with the Vikings. You've got, Thielen out, Diggs questionable, Cook a little bit banged up. Now, just with the emergence, the Bears, a little 3-game winning streak.
Yeah.
The Rams, no one's cut their head off yet. The Vikings can't relax. That wild card spot is still in jeopardy because one wild card spot absolutely will go to the second place out of 49ers and Seahawks. There's only one other playoff spot available. At the moment, the Vikings hold that. But as I just said, Bears and Rams nipping at their heels. You can't stuff up a game like this. And I expect them to win, and they should win comfortably. Will they cover this number? Not prepared to put my money on it, so we're passing.
And they still have the same record as the Packers, so they're well and truly in the hunt to win that division. So let's move on to the Colts, plus 3 points at the Bucks. 47 points is the total. The Bucks have been playing well. Jameis Winston, who is on your fantasy team, Jacob, and you've been riding the hot hand here, he's been playing decent in the last few weeks, that's for sure. It's been a different Jameis Winston to what we saw in the first half of the season, that's for sure. Pretty much easy win over the Jags last week. They were up, 25-0, I think, and then the Jags put in Mustache Minshew, and they made a little bit of a run and came back, but the Bucks were too good. But look, the Colts, that's the dream crusher for me last week. I know I've said this for a few teams, but that's really the dream crusher. You're playing a division rival, same record as you. You lose that game against the Titans, and now you're 2 games back to the Texans, and you're 1 game back from the Titans. So I really think that is a bad loss for the Colts, and I worry about their mentality coming into this game. Also, the fact that the Colts' MO has been just run the ball. You might get Marlon Mack back for this one. So if they do get him back, I expect them to run even more than they have been. I expect Marlon Mack not to be 100%, and the strength of this Bucks team is their run defense. So I think they're going to be able to stop them. It's a good matchup. I think the Bucks are the better team, playing better at the moment. So I'm happy to lay the -3 at home with a Bucks team that's been playing very, very well lately.
So Dream Crusher concept we've brought up a couple times last couple of weeks. It will come up again as we get towards the season, and I'd define it as a team has a goal, during the season that they want to achieve. In this case, this Colts team, clearly a goal would be to make the playoffs, and you get a result that pretty much makes that goal impossible. So you get that, that tough loss that takes that out of your hands. Now, is making the playoffs impossible for the Colts? No, not yet. But I don't know if it's a full dream crusher, but I do think it's kind of a reality check in that I've said this before, that Andrew Luck retires a couple weeks before the season. They didn't let that get to them. They said, we're not defined by one player. Everyone's in. We believe in Jacoby Brissett. And they won a couple close games, and they had a little belief, and they were really rolling. But now it's like, but you can't sustain that, and it would be really nice to have one of the best 5 QBs in the NFL, and they've lost some games that they should have won. They've lost close games, they've lost home games against division rivals, and now it's like best case scenario, if everything falls our way, maybe we could win every game, maybe we get into the playoffs, and even then, who are we really competing with? So it's got to be deflating for them. The Bucks, they were probably a fringe playoff team at best, and they haven't really been in the hunt for a while. So I actually have more faith in their kind of state of mind, playing at home. You always like the talent on this team. You talked about Jameis, mistake prone, but also he's got playmakers he's not afraid to get the ball to. So I think this is a cheap line to play the Bucks with.
Yeah, definitely. We're rolling with 3 best bets for this one. We're taking the Bucks laying 3 points. That's $1.88 on Unibet. We're going to take the Buccaneers team total over 24.5 points. That's $1.87 on Sportsbet. We're going to take the Bucks laying 2.5 points in the first half. That one's $1.90 on Bet365. Moving along to the Dolphins, plus 5.5 points at the Jets. 45.5 points is the total. Wow, what a game last week from the Dolphins. They get the outright upset as double-digit dogs to the Eagles. And just some ridiculous shit. Well, I mean, that one touchdown, Jacob, was that the punt? Was that the kicker to the holder? Or the holder to the kicker or something? First time it's happened in NFL history.
That's right, holder to kicker, and the holder is the punter.
There you go, yeah. So fucking hell. Crazy stuff from the Dolphins. And really, like, you don't really want to play against this Dolphins team at the moment. They've been playing some really, really good football and inspired shit with Fitzpatrick. But this is a spot, so I don't really want to go against a Dolphins team that is actually playing better than the Jets at the moment. But I think, you know, the Dolphins off an emotional win against the Eagles. So I can see this being a bit of a letdown spot. You get the win as a double-digit dog. Now you have to travel on the road again. And the Jets have been horrific. They got embarrassed by Cincinnati last week. Now you come back home, and I think they are still the better team. And I think, you know, once we're getting into, you know, winter now in the States, and Miami weather is a lot different to New York, that's for sure, this time of year. And it's an outdoor stadium, no roof. So that makes me want to play the Jets. But with Lev Bell questionable, it's enough. And the Dolphins just playing some crazy football at the moment. It's enough to probably keep me off the game.
Yeah, you can make a case for both teams. Like, I've watched them both play in recent weeks, and the Dolphins playing hard. And as you say, like, I think it's a sign of a team that really is trying, that they're coming up with these gadget plays and trick plays and stuff and going for it on fourth down, because they're not just trying to make up the numbers. They're playing to win these games. And we've got a first-year head coach in Brian Flores, and he's pumped, and the troops actually look excited. You know, Devontae Parker, breakout game, Fitzpatrick, you know, is embodying the spirit of this team. He puts his body on the line. He's balling out. The team actually playing with energy. The Jets, they're one of the toughest teams to pick this year. I mean, they blew out the Raiders a couple weeks ago, right? We were on that.
Yep.
Then we faded the Jets last week. We're on the Bengals, so we were right again. So I was happy, you know, that the Bengals got the win. We even hit a value play there, Bengals halftime, full-time. But I've got to say, the Jets were putrid. The Jets couldn't even get into the Bengals red zone. So if you're watching the red zone, you never once saw Jets snap, basically. Like, and they were losing that game by like 10, 14 points. You want to add to that?
I was going to say, I hate the Jets. I fucking hate the Jets.
And you think like a team that's down
into $18,000 and the Jets win.
Oh yeah, and that killed me as well. That week where they beat the Cowboys. Although
sick.
Let's look back, the Cowboys aren't as good as we thought back then.
That's
to
true.
be fair.
That's true.
But it's like, even when they were down, they're not even throwing the ball down the field. They're handing off. There's Darnold throwing shitty little short passes, can't even complete them. So they were just so putrid last week. The Jets, the only team in NFL history to lose to two winless teams later than week 7, because they lost to the Dolphins and then they lost to the Bengals and helped both teams break their duck. But on that point, I do feel like the Jets, who are coached by the previous Dolphins coach and the coach that the Dolphins fired, and I've said before, why are you hiring a guy who your division rival, who is shit, fired? But
maybe
anyway,
they're playing 4D chess and they're losing to these winless teams so that they can
to stuff up their draft pick.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't think the Jets are going to lose to the Dolphins twice. So like, that's a factor that swings around, and you'd say the Jets, they have more talent. They are at home. Surely they don't let the Dolphins beat them twice. That's why the line is, 5.5. But I already explained why. I just want no part of that team. So I'm not going to be on either side in this game. I don't even want to watch it.
Yeah, it's going to be a terrible game. Do not watch that game. A game that you should watch is the 49ers plus 2.5 points at the Saints. 44.5 points is the total. I cannot understand this line. And someone, let me know in the comments if I'm crazy. But I love the Saints here laying less than a field goal at home. The Saints have, historically...
Where's Joseph Stanley? He'll let you know.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Niners gang! The Saints historically have a home field advantage that is worth 3.5 points, over 3 points. So this line is telling me that the 49ers are the better team. Look, maybe you can make an argument for that, but I think these are two fairly similar teams. The 49ers are in a bad spot. They're coming off a tough game with travel to the Ravens. Came right down to the wire in the wet. It took it out of them, and they lose in that one. Now you have to travel again from West Coast to East Coast. Well, not East Coast, but still a fair bit of travel from California to New Orleans. Different weather conditions. Plus, you have less rest. The Saints have extra prep off a pretty easy game against the Falcons last week. They get 3 extra days prep. And the 49ers are not fully healthy here. I mean, Kittle's still a little bit banged up. Emmanuel Sanders is a little bit banged up. Marquise Goodwin, another wide receiver, out. I know they haven't used Dante Pettis, much this year, but out as well. So that receiving core is not great. The 49ers' strength, obviously, is their run game. The Saints' strength is their run defense. So I think that's a good matchup in terms of the Saints here. But I think the Saints are going to win this game. This is crazy to me that this line is under 3 points.
I mean, the 49ers are a legit team. They're 10-2, 2 losses to 2 other 10-2 teams. They lost in overtime to the 10-2 Seahawks, and they lost by a field goal as time expires to the 10-2 Ravens. So pretty hard to fault that 49ers resume, but pretty tough stretch too. That, all right, look, they dismantled Green Bay, but that's still Sunday Night Football, like big game, and yeah, they get the result, goes their way. Then the next week, a huge game as well on the road at the Ravens. And now this week on the road at the Saints. I don't think that's ever happened in history. A team that had 80% wins or better in the 49ers, who, when that stretch began, they were 9-1.
Yep.
Has to play 3 straight games against opponents that had an 80% win streak or win percentage or better. Because you think they played
true.
Roughly whatever it would have been, an 8-2 Packers.
Yep.
And 9-2 Ravens, and now a 10-2 Saints. So that is a murderer's row. And ultimately, I just agree with you. I think the Saints are the better team, and at home, it's a cheap number to lay.
Indeed, and we've got 4 bets on this one. We do really like the Saints in this spot. We're taking the Saints laying 2 points. That is $1.91 on BetEasy. We're going to take the Saints to win the first half. That is $1.82 on BetEasy. Taking the Saints team total over 23. That's $1.83 on Sportsbet. We'll take the 49ers team total under 22. That one's on BetEasy in the 3-way market. Next up, we have the Redskins plus 12 points at the Packers. 41.5 points is the total. Like I said, we never really lay double digits, but in this case, that's the only side I could look. I think it's a massive letdown spot for the Redskins after that win over the Panthers last week. You get a massive win as a big underdog, then you have to travel on the road again as a double-digit underdog. It's tough to get up, for multiple games in a row. And the Packers, they still need this game. They're still fighting with the Vikings to win that division there. So, if anything, I would lay the points. But, as we said, laying double digits in the NFL is generally not a smart idea.
Yeah, I think you mentioned the Packers and Vikings have the same record, but actually after the Packers won last week and the Vikings lost, the Packers are 1 win ahead. They'll still play each other. They've got, I think, after this game, all divisional games. So they've still got the Bears again and they've got the Lions. So it's still all to play for. But you don't want to drop this one when you have the upper hand. You have the best record. Look, we laid, 6.5 on the road at the Giants last week, and pretty comfortable win for the Packers.
Very.
And this is, if you flip it now, you'd say the Skins are equally shit to the Giants. And now they're not on the road, they're at home. So this is similar value. But I don't feel as good about it. You mentioned that the Redskins, had a big effort and get a big win at Carolina, and it's hard for a shitty team to, recreate or recapture that energy they kind of exhale after a win. But don't forget they won, at the Bell the week before as well. Was that against the Jets? So it's actually this terrible downtrodden Redskins team is on a little win streak, They've won 2 in a row, and maybe after such a bad year, they
what we said about the Falcons, and they proceeded to get blown out by the Bucks.
Yeah, but there's that possibility that there's a little bit of confidence in the team. I don't think they should be confident. I don't have any faith in Dwayne Haskins, but that would be the concern, or that would be the case to make to take the plus 13. Plus, there's also a case to be made that the Packers aren't as good as people think. In terms of statistically, if you take out 2 games where they got blown out by the Chargers and the Niners, they've got basically a 0.0 yardage differential, which means in 10 games that they won 9 of, they didn't outgain their opponents,
That is crazy,
as a net overall. So they're winning close games, and they're exceeding what you'd expect their number of wins should be from the yards they get. So is that because they've got Aaron Rodgers and they get critical yards when they need them, like on third down, or are they also a little bit lucky? I mean, the Lions game where they got some absolutely garbage calls and they pinched that one Monday night. a goal line stand stopping Christian McCaffrey come to mind where the Packers have been quite fortuitous. So they might not be as good as people are giving them credit for either. So again, we passed that one.
Indeed, we are passing that one, and we're moving on to the Chargers, laying 3 points at the Jacksonville Jaguars. 43 points is the total. Well, these two teams have just had horrific seasons. I mean, the Chargers weeks, we talked about that loss last week to the Broncos. Just an absolutely ridiculous loss. I mean, they were the worst team, to be fair. They were down 14-3 pretty early, get a late score just before halftime, get an early score just after halftime. But then just have another one of those brutal losses. Like we said, a 50-yard heave with 8 seconds left to put the Broncos in field goal scoring range, and then they do kick it a 52-yarder to win that game. And this has been the story of the Chargers season, just close loss after close loss. The Jags, on the other hand, they have just spiraled downwards. I mean, they've lost 4 in a row now, and their defense is, that was once a much feared defense, has been horrific over the last 4 seasons. And I don't know what it is, but it seems like they've just given up on the season. So I've got 2 pretty bad defenses. One in the Jags that has been horrible lately. They're second worst against the rush, actually, and that's what the Chargers love to do with old Melly Gordon. So I think that both teams completely out of the playoff hunt here. I think they're going to be able to score some points. So I like the over. Plus, I think it helps that Mustache Minshew is in there instead of Nick Foles. I think he's just had better chemistry with some of those receivers, especially DJ Chark this year. So I think that helps the over that Minshew's in rather than Foles.
Yeah, we thought that after a kind of crappy year that maybe, and then Minshew Mania arrived and the Jags were playing with energy, but it did kind of wear off. His magic wore off a little bit. He performed, more closer to average or regressed to the mean, you could say, and they lost some games. And then Nick Foles came back, and you thought that would re-energize them and raise their ceiling a little bit, because this is the former Super Bowl MVP, the guy they gave $100 million. But he's been horrible. Plays 2.5 games terribly. Gets benched last week when they're down 25-0, and now they're saying they're going with Minshew the rest of the season. So you can say, maybe the team responds better to Minshew.
How much are they paying Nick Foles? A shitload.
Yeah, they're paying him a lot of money. So they've got an interesting decision to make moving forward, but they're kind of screwed either way, like long term.
True.
And the Chargers, definitely the more talented team, but you're laying 3 points on the road, so you're paying that premium. And yeah, they blew the game last week. I think sweating on a multi, you needed the Broncos to win, and I said to you, don't worry, if anyone knows how to give away a game, it's the Chargers, and they did. Classic Chargers, and that's been the story of their season. But I wonder, just getting a little bit healthier, they actually are. They're, arguably their best defensive playmaker, and Derwin James kicked off last week. If I have more faith that the Chargers are probably going to win this game, but
Me too.
Most importantly, I think that both teams can put up some points, and neither team is really desperate, so that can help with the over.
Indeed, we've just got one best bet on this one. We're taking the over. It's over 42. You'll find that one on Bet365. Just look into the alternate total markets. Next up, absolute cracker. The Chiefs plus 3 points at the Patriots. 48.5 points is the total. Yeah, I don't know what to do with this game. I think I like the Chiefs, and I think you liked the Pats, Jacob. I just think the Chiefs, are they still slightly underrated after having all those injuries earlier on in the season to a bunch of receivers? Obviously, Mahomes was injured for a few weeks. Tyreek Hill was out for a few weeks. I understand that they have injuries at running back. Darrell Williams put on IR. Damian Williams out for this one. But really, the difference between Shady McCoy and Darwin Thompson to Damian Williams and Darrell Williams, I don't think it's that much, really. So I think that's fine. But the Pats, look, they lose to the Texans last week and they got blown out. That game, I know it was only 6 points, but they scored 2 late touchdowns. They got bullied in that game. And tell me if I'm crazy, but Tom Brady the last few weeks has not looked the same. And I know we've said this every single year, but there is going to be some point that he does decline and his body, fails him. And I'm just wondering whether that is now. Because the last few weeks he has looked rough. His passes have not been as accurate as they have been. And look, to be fair, some of that might be on the receivers. Because really, all he's got to throw to is Edelman, and the rest are a bunch of rookies, and Sanu that's only just learning the playbook came, 3 weeks ago. So I think the Pats have some worries here. I know that you can run the ball on the Chiefs, but this Patriots running game has not been great. Sony Michel has been horrific this year, and I know that because he's on my fantasy team. So, I think the Chiefs are still probably a better team overall here, but once again, the Patriots are tough to beat at Foxborough. So we're leaving the game, but I would certainly lean Chiefs.
Yeah, I hate to leave like a marquee game, and it's not even that I like the Patriots. I deep down believe the Chiefs are the better team. I think they are massively underrated. I think, people forget that they played games with a gimpy Pat Mahomes.
True.
They played games without a Mahomes, without Tyreek Hill, without Chris Jones. This team is starting to fire, and they destroyed Oakland, that people thought was a wildcard team a couple weeks ago, last week. And I've got some money on the Chiefs at 12-1 to win the Super Bowl. And the weird thing is, I don't really care if they win this game. And that's kind of why I don't like the Chiefs this week, because it's just not a game they really need. Now, if you want to crunch the numbers, I think they got 4 losses. The Pats have 2 losses. So there's a pathway, sure, that if they pull an upset here, and let's mention revenge factor, it's the Patriots that kept the Chiefs out of the Super Bowl in overtime, a cracking game last year that the Chiefs were a fingernail from winning.
Yep.
So look, of course, they want to come in and avenge that loss and pull it within a game. But really, after this game, the Patriots play like divisional teams that they're not going to drop another one in most likelihood. And the fact that the Chiefs, started out of the gates early on in the season, they've fallen too many behind. That they're probably just not going to be catching these teams and get a bye, which is going to make life very tough in January. If it was on a neutral venue, I might like the Chiefs. And this line's kind of telling you that with making it only 3, Foxborough is a strong home field.
Yeah.
But the Pats have their issues. I deep down believe the Pats do have another gear. And look, if you want to sound smart, just every single year say that Brady doesn't look right to you. You think he's going to fall off a cliff. And 1 year, eventually you'll be right.
True.
But do you want to, lose money for 3 more years until that happens? I do think part of it is they do enough to win. And last week was the exception because half the team had the flu. They fell down by 20 points. I don't think they did bring their A game on offense because I think they kind of knew that one had slipped away. I think when they really need it, they will fire. They kind of do need this game more than the Chiefs because they're still fighting for a 1 seed, which is the best pathway to make the Super Bowl. It's to not have to leave home and to get that bye. And obviously the Ravens have overtaken them. So I don't want to go against the Pats that after 2 weeks in a row haven't covered and off a loss at home. And Chiefs, if anything, have got an advantage in team speed. Probably doesn't come out in an outdoor stadium in what could be poor weather conditions. So it's just keeping me off the game.
Yep, and that is fair enough. Up, we've got the Steelers laying 2 points at the Cardinals. 43 points is the total. And I'm just going to lift the lid on what sort of happens the morning before the pod. We spend a lot of time deep diving, discussing the games, and eventually finding the best bets. And I'll tell you, we spent a lot of time on this one, and I'm going to do this a little bit differently. I initially leaned towards the Cardinals, and Jacob talked me around to the Steelers. He made a very compelling argument. I will tell you why I was on the Cardinals, and then Jacob can tell us how he turned it all around and finally put me onto the Steelers because he made a very compelling case. I wanted to take the Cardinals because one, and often an absolutely embarrassing loss to the Rams last week. I don't like the spot for the Steelers here. They've had a run of pretty much 6 very tough sort of close games, and I know that the Steelers defense is elite, or so they say, elite. They're a top 5 or maybe even top 4 overall defense according to DVOA, but I just worry that their schedule has not been that tough lately. I looked through their last sort of 9 games. They played the Bengals twice, the Ravens once, which was the one tough game there, the Chargers, whose offense stinks, the Dolphins, who are pretty bad, the Colts, who were not full strength, the Rams, who were awful back then, and the Browns twice, who have been struggling as well. Plus the fact that you've got James Conner and Juju Smith-Schuster out. I didn't really like the Steelers, but Jacob, you made a very compelling case, and I was happy to go along with it. Why don't you tell me why you liked the Steelers?
Yeah, we'll look a little bit past the numbers, although it's worth saying, I think if you rate defensive units, we trust the stats of DVOA, and you said, they're top 4. In fact, they may be 3rd. You said that right. They're the 3rd best defense in the NFL, but they've played not great offenses. But DVOA accounts for who you play.
It's true.
They've made average or below average offenses look horrendous. So I think you still got to give them credit in the same way that we all knew that the Pats defense was legit this year, even though the Pats barely played anyone good for the first, 9 weeks of the season. That's how I feel that the Steelers team, they honestly can ride this defense, which is not being spoken about in the same manner that people are talking about that Pats defense, that Niners defense, or that Ravens defense. But I think it's on that level. And we've talked a lot in these games about, is this team motivated? Does this team have the energy after last week, after this and that? I just feel that with the Steelers, you've got all hands on deck. Now, they're extremely limited on offense. They're going with a third-string QB, but I feel like they know their limitations. I still think they have a really good offensive line. You get Pouncey back from a 2-game suspension. He was involved in the fracas with Myles Garrett. Even talking about the Browns, you're saying like it's not that impressive that they played the Browns twice, but the Browns were still alive and kicking when they did play those 2 games. Quite an impressive win to beat the Browns last week. And with the Arizona Cardinals, with them, it's the question mark. Like, they've actually exceeded expectations. They've been pretty good this year. But, is Kyler Murray's hammy 100%? Because if he's not effective with his legs, then he can't do a lot. He struggles against teams that can generate pressure on the QB. The Steelers absolutely can. So it's not really a value play like if we do our equation where we flip home field and say, would you take the Steelers -8 at home? Probably not. But I strongly believe they're going to win this game. This team is, against the odds, going to make the playoffs. And if they are going to make the playoffs, you've got to beat teams like this. And I think that they will beat the Cardinals. I think that across, the 53-man squad, apart from the QB, it's the better team. And even with those injuries notwithstanding. So I feel really good about the Steelers, one of my favorite plays this week.
Indeed, and you did talk me around. We've got 2 best bets on the Steelers. We're taking them laying 1.5 points. That is $1.91 on BetEasy. We're going to take the Cardinals team total under 22 points. That one is $1.82 on BetEasy. That's a 3-way market, that one.
If I was savvy, I would have not made that strong case to you, and I would have bet you. And you could have had Cardinals, I could have had Steelers, I could have got myself $2 odds on the line.
Yes.
But I really wanted to make that strong case so we can have it as best bet, so we can hook up the loyal followers of the pod.
No, absolutely. You've done a good job.
The followers come first.
True.
Next now, don't let us down, Duck.
Yes, Duck Hodges. The Titans laying 3 points at the Raiders. 47.5 points is the total. Once again, what we have here is 2 teams moving in opposite directions. The Titans are rolling. And from nowhere, they've come out of the blue. Obviously, Mariota out, but they've been doing a good job. Tannehill's been flinging the ball around, and now they get a huge confidence-boosting win over the Colts, a division rival that they had the same record as before that game. So now the Titans really do believe that they can win that division, and they can. I think they have 2. No.
Yeah, they play the Texans twice.
Yeah, they have 2 games coming up against the Texans. So the Titans really do believe that they can win that division and make a run here. They have been playing very good. The Raiders, on the other hand, we said this the week before that they lost to the Jets. We said this Raiders team might be coming into this game just a tad bit overrated. They'd won 3 close games, all at home, and now you've just seen, they got thrashed by the Jets, they got obliterated by the Chiefs, and now any hope that they had of winning that division, and they probably had a slim hope, when they were sitting at 6-4, is gone, because now they're 2 games back from the Chiefs, plus the Chiefs hold the tiebreaker, so the Raiders season is pretty much done now. Also, I'm not too worried about the travel here. It's only a 2-hour time difference from Tennessee to Oakland, plus it's a later slot game, which is good, I think, as well, because you're moving backwards in time, so they're actually going to be, playing at a fairly good body clock time for the Titans here, so I don't think that's too much of a disadvantage. Plus, I don't think that the Raiders have a huge home field advantage there. I know that the stadium is pretty shit. And they're, honestly, the Titans fans could travel well for this one. The Titans are on an absolute roll, and I expect that to continue here.
Yeah, the Titans are another team that I know that I'm getting a team that's all on the same page, where there's a good, chemistry, energy in this team. This team is rolling and picking up momentum. And if you look at some of the stats of, I think, the last 16 Titans games, they're going to lead you to believe that Derrick Henry is the best running back in the NFL. And he probably isn't, but I think that that's a result of everyone, meeting their assignments, good offensive line play, even receivers blocking downfield, the threat that Tannehill creates. This team really does roll, and they make plays on defense too. And they get a good, a bit of luck involved to win the game on the road against Indy last week because they had less yardage, but they blocked a field goal for a touchdown. But in saying that, they did fumble the ball twice in the first half as well to fall behind. I think we liked them last week. We took them last week, and we were unlucky not to, sweep our plays on that game. In fact, we went 1-2 in that game, funnily enough. And they won as an underdog by 14 points.
Unreal.
So I just like the direction and the focus that this Titans team has, whereas, as you say, the Raiders, we don't know what we're going to get out of this team, and I don't think they're as good as the Titans to begin with. So I don't mind laying a small number on the road with Tennessee.
Also, arguably the Raiders' best player, Josh Jacobs, their running back, questionable for this one. So if he can't go, that's certainly a blow to them as well. Two best bets on this one. We are taking the Titans laying 2.5 points. That one is $1.84. You'll find that on Sportsbet in the other markets. Just watch out because I think it's $1.82.
83.
It's a normal one, or $1.83 in the alt line. So make sure you go to those other markets, get yourself an extra couple of cents. They do add up. And we're going to take the Raiders team total under 23 points. That were 87 on Sportsbet. Next up, what should be another pretty good game, Seahawks +1 at the LA Rams, 47 points is the total. This is shaping up to be a really good game, especially because both teams are obviously still well within the playoff hunt. The Seahawks are 9-3 now? 10-2. Seahawks are 10-2. The Rams
leading the NFC West.
True, yes, very true.
After the Niners were 8-0.
Crazy, and the Rams are in the same division. They are 7-5, so they're playing to keep their playoff hopes alive. Big win over the Cards last week, and I think not so much. It's not a letdown spot at all for the Rams here. They are going to be fighting tooth and nail for every single game because they'll need to win them. Most of them. I think they'll need to go 3 out of 4 at least, I think, to make the playoffs here. The Rams do. The Seahawks, look, they are the better team here. But how much better, I'm not quite sure. I mean, you look at the Seahawks, they won. I know they won against the Vikings last week, but geez, that defense was giving up some points. I mean, the Vikings scored 30 points on them. And just, some of those Seahawks wins, especially recently, have been a little bit lucky. So maybe they're a little bit lucky to be 10-2. I mean, overtime win over the 49ers, overtime win against Tampa the week before. And I think the Rams have a bit of a renewed confidence now. I think the Rams coming in a little bit underrated as well because of all the injuries that they've had to their wide receivers. You have all of them back this week. You're missing your tight end, Gerald Everett, but still you have Woods, Kupp, and Cooks all there. Jared Goff, I think he just needed a game like that to get some confidence back. I think he was playing scared up until basically last week. I think that's going to be great for his confidence there. So, look, I just think the sharp play here is to take the Rams at home. The Seahawks, one of those teams historically, I know it hasn't been the case this season, but one of those teams historically where, they're much better at home than they are away. That's why they have pretty much a 4-point home field advantage at home. So I like the Rams here. I think they do get the win at home.
Yeah, concept that you see across lots of sports is when a team is struggling and then gets to play like a weak opponent, sometimes that can just be the best remedy to get their confidence back and get the wheels turning again. And they took their frustrations out on Arizona and absolutely destroyed them last week, even more so than the final score will tell you, because they shut up shop after 2.5 quarters. They were up 30 points, and Jared Goff, I think, had nearly 400 yards passing in the first half after copying a lot of criticism. So if they'd wanted to, he could have broken the all-time record for passing yards. So that gives me a little bit more confidence that they can move the ball. And defensively, this team is still really strong, the Rams.
100%.
It's been their offense that's let them down. Now, the other thing about the Seahawks, we really like them. We've made good money on them. And again, although we didn't make money in the game, we liked them against the Vikings, and they did cover that one. They covered plenty for us. But I think out of their 10 wins, I think they're 9-1 in games decided by one score or less. So basically, they have won 9 out of 10 of their close games this year. And if you're going to tell me, it's because they got Russell Wilson, he wins in the close games. Well, I heard that you look at all of their one-score games in the previous 7 seasons with Russell Wilson, and they're 31-33.
Which is more what it should be.
That's what, in close games, you win half. In the long term, you win half. In the short term, you might win a few more. And you mentioned a couple of overtime wins there. These teams played each other on a Thursday night football game that the Seahawks won by 1 or 2 points on a Greg the Leg field goal that basically went over the post and was declared a miss on the final play. So that's how close these teams were last time. And in that game, the
It's true,
Seahawks
big
were a
revenge.
1-point favorite. And that was in Seattle. Now, this line has been adjusted like 4 or 5 points. So I don't think that the way these teams have played justifies that adjustment. Therefore, there is some line value here on the Rams.
Yep, and we've got 3 best bets on the Rams. We're going to take them just to win the game straight up at $1.87 on BetEasy. We're going to take them straight up in the first half in a two-way market. That's $1.90 on Bet365. And we're going to take the Seahawks team total under 12.5 points in the first half. That $1.85 on Sportsbet. Monday night game is a fizzer. The Giants plus 9.5 points at the Eagles. 46 points is the total. I don't know what to do with this game. The Giants are putrid, and they're sticking Eli Manning back in. So who knows how this team is going to react. I don't even know if the team liked Eli Manning. I don't know what you reckon, Jacob, but I don't know if they're going to get a boost necessarily from him being in there. And the Giants, really, they're stuck on 2 wins. Ownership and stuff probably wants to lose this game, really, because they don't really have an answer at quarterback yet. On the other hand, the Eagles, they want to win this game, that's for sure. That's a huge bounce back spot of an embarrassing loss to the Dolphins last week. And they just watched Dallas lose on Thursday Night Football, and they're in the same division, obviously. So I think that's a bit of a boost to the Eagles as well. I can't see the Eagles losing, but at the same time, I do not want to lay, 9.5 points. Seems like a lot.
The NFC East with all these storied franchises, the Dallas
Unreal.
Cowboys, the Philly Eagles, Super Bowl champs a couple of years ago, the Giants, multiple Super Bowl wins against the Pats, and even the Redskins, a storied franchise. They have a chance, this whole division, so those 4 teams I mentioned, to have the lowest combined winning percentage in the history of NFL, I believe. And even the Redskins that we talked about before still have a chance to win this division, and it's a really weird one. So if you win your division, not only are you guaranteed to make the playoffs, but you're guaranteed to host a playoff game. So the weird thing is that one of these teams, and it will be either Philly or Dallas, even though they both have losing records, one of them is going to be hosting a playoff game. So their season's well and truly alive. And the other weird quirk is that they play each other.
One of them could be playing like the 49ers.
Yeah,
or like
exactly.
Seattle.
But the crazy thing is, would you be shocked if Dallas hosts the 49ers in week 1 of the playoffs and steals that game? Like, that's the thing. They don't really deserve to, make the playoffs, but the way it works. But really, if Dallas hosts 49ers, let's do this. How much of an underdog are they going to be? Like 3 or something at most. Yeah. So you're not going to be shocked when a 3-point dog wins in a playoff game. So that's the crazy part. But Philly and Dallas play each other in a couple of weeks, and really, almost no matter how everything else shakes out, that game's going to decide who gets that spot. So that's unless Philly just can't beat anybody else. Philly does need to get back on track and win a game. And after blowing a 2-touchdown lead last week, they'll probably come out and get this one. The problem is they are still quite beat up and still limited. With the Giants, it's so weird. They drafted Daniel Jones, I think 6th in the draft, and got a lot of criticism, and people were making a lot of jokes about what a reach that was. He comes in week 3, they're 0-2. They get a miracle win against Tampa. I think they win the next week. They're 2-2 now, and he's the savior, and he's Danny Dimes, and he's re-energized the franchise. That was when they were 2-2. They're now 2-10.
Yeah.
And they're not so re-energized. He's turning the ball over 2 or 3 times every week. He's not playing too well. So he's got an ankle sprain, and Eli comes in. So you're right. What do we make of that? Is that going to actually make the team happy again? Because Eli can probably provide a better chance to win than what Danny Dimes was? Or is it just more of the same, sorry shit? Yeah. And as you said, after being in that position, there were so many teams that looked like there was no way they'd win a game, like your Washingtons and your Miamis. Isn't it funny that now the Giants have the second worst record in the whole NFL? That makes me worry. Yeah, that they might not desperately really be in their interest to win this game. We've said that a few times. Having said all that, if it gets to 10, I think, or if I could get a line over 10, or if I see the markets moving where
I think we have
10 was the last available, double digit, because we considered plus 10 $1.80 this morning. We just said we'll wait and see, for example, how Cincinnati goes. Because if Cincinnati wins, then the Giants actually hold the worst record in the NFL. So we will wait. With that game being a Tuesday morning in Australia, we've got a little bit of time. But you would expect the Eagles to win. But hey, it's like nearly double digits at home. So no rush to lay that. No rush to do anything with this game yet. It's a shocker of a game to be the the bookend of week 14. But that's the way it goes.
Yeah, indeed. And that end of it, we finish on a pretty shitty game. And that, I think we're pretty confident that we're seeing the ball well with our bets. Obviously, like I said, 27-8 last week, and pretty unlucky to have the 8 losses, to be fair. So we're seeing it well. Thanks once again, guys, for tuning in on a Saturday morning. Hope you have a good weekend. Hope you win some more money. We probably will. I'll probably try and throw up a horse racing thread in the group straight after this pod is done. Anything else you wanted to add, Jacob? Obviously, Maltese will be coming.
The Maltese will be out. Let's just share a little story of our weekend. We are off to the NBL tonight. We're going to watch the Bullets because we live in Brisbane and, we don't... Well, I watch a little bit of NBL. I much prefer watching NBA, and when you've got the choice between the two, you don't watch a great deal of NBL. But we're big basketball fans. But when you get the chance to watch the guy who's probably going to be number 1 pick in the NBA next year, and LaMelo Ball, come play in your city, you got to do it. So we got our tickets, we're ready to go, and he hurt his foot in training this week, and he's not playing tonight. So we're going to go watch the third worst team in the NBL play the worst team in the NBL. So that should be fun.
Yeah, the story of our absolute life. We never would have gone to an NBL game if it wasn't for LaMelo Ball being played. And of course, he gets injured the fucking day before or 2 days before. Absolutely shit. But if you're at the game, feel free to say hello. We will be there. But thanks once again for tuning in, guys. Good luck on your bets, and we will see you next Saturday at the same time, 10 a.m. Catch you then.